is the Board of Selectmen meeting. First up is a request for permission to hold the Bear Hill Triathlon on Sunday, June 28th, 2020.
Top of the list,
Come
huh?
on down.
I'm Sue Redick from the Harvard Lions Club.
Nice. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. I'm a first-time grandma a couple hours ago.
Congratulations. All right, congratulations.
So the race has not changed, and I have the chief's permission to do as we've done last year. So we're starting in Harvard on what we call Fulton Road, and we switch to your Harvard Road, to Green Road, and up your Bear Hill, which becomes our Scott Road. So we have 3 marshals here and 2 marshals here. And this happens on the 28th, Sunday the 28th, between about 8:15 and 8:45 in the morning.
Okay. And you talked to the chief and he's okay?
Yes,
He's
yes.
before
Yes,
all
and
this
we
good
have,
stuff.
the insurance waiver is coming tomorrow, so I will get that to you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I move to approve the Bear Hill Triathlon on Sunday, February 28th, subject to receipt of the insurance certificate.
Okay, I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay?
Wow.
Thank
Well,
you.
congratulations.
Thank you, I know, I'm so excited.
Careful.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, so next up is school committee update. Mary McCarthy, FY21 budget, 3rd school committee seat, and the MSBA process.
Okay,
Mary, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Good.
Great.
So this is the high chair.
This is all fresh, late breaking news.
It is, and since you were at school committee last night, you already know a lot of this, so if you want to add anything. So I'll go in the order of what you have here.
Sure.
Start with the budget?
Yep.
Okay. So, budget update. The process that it's followed in this district is a process I'm very familiar with. 8 years as a principal, 12 years as principal, 8 years as a curriculum director in Hudson. And so this is the process that we followed too. And it's a complicated, it's a difficult process, but it's also necessary. The way it works here, the administration principals and department heads work collaboratively. And they work collaboratively anyway, but especially in regard to the budget. They begin with what they see as their needs, having asked that of their staff. And so they compile all that to move students' learning and achievement forward. Now, that process is vital and it's carefully considered, even though we all know that not everything that principals and department heads would like to see is going to be able to be supported in the budget. However, the documentation of where everyone would like to be is really important, and so you can never skip that step. So the initial process culminated in the budget workshop, which was held on a Saturday. It was January 25th. All departments and schools presented their budgets in an open meeting. So as an educator, I attended many student events, especially as a principal on weekends, and but of my own volition. This is the first time I've ever seen a school district meet on a Saturday, and everyone was there, and they presented. And so I just want to call out how extraordinary I think that is. Especially on a Saturday, that might be the only day that they have to sleep, but they were all there and they presented their budgets to us. And at that point, we and Superintendent Clunchy, explained that we were over the 3% that we heard very clearly. I wasn't able to attend the Tri-County meeting, but I watched all of you on video, and I heard very clearly. And Dawn had said to us before too that this was going to be a very austere year in terms of the budget. So what Superintendent Clunchy does is he goes to the principal and department heads and asks them to make decisions about their cuts, and that process has continued with at least 2 more rounds of cutting. Last night's school committee meeting, Brooke presented that the budget is still not there at the 3% that the towns have requested. We have 88699 in reductions that are still needed. But that is going to happen, and those tough decisions will be made.
When you say 8869?
699.
69.
Yeah, so $844,699 still needed. So I have the benefit of Brooke's presentation last night, and so I'll just give you a little bit of information from that. the drivers on the budget, the Worcester Regional Retirement Assessment increased 10.21%, out-of-district tuition 30%. Additional staffing necessary in special education, and one regular ed due to enrollment. Any of the other positions that principals wished for and wanted and departments did too are not going to be able to be funded. Unit A and C contract matrix, the step and lane changes, the contract negotiations, this increase there. There are 169 teachers, but not, you think about a 2% increase. However, when you bring in the step and lane changes, we're not just talking about 2%. And also to remind you that the former Minuteman positions and benefits, which were in the general town budget, now will be in the school's budget. And so just so to, there's like about $300,000 there. Just to remind you, and you probably remember about that. So far, facility cuts have included the track repair at the high school. They've rolled back any additional staffing asks unless specifically enrollment or mandate driven. So we're talking special education, we're talking English language learners, and that's basically it. They've realigned staffing for more efficiencies, reduction of OPEB funding from 100K to 50. The reduction of the turf field stabilization from 100 to 50, increased revenue funding from E&D to $1 million. And still, that means that we have to reduce again by 844,699. So what's next? Class size review, and what Brooke explained was looking at all classes at the high school and throughout the district, especially those with really low enrollment, seeing that whether there's any way to consolidate positions that might not be a full-time position, but if someone had certification in more than one area. So they're looking at absolutely everything, looking at additional staffing efficiencies, review of OPEB, and the stabilization contributions for fiscal year 21. So that's basically it. We heard loud and clear from Bolton and from the other towns. That we need to get down to 3, and that's what's going to happen, and it should happen by the next school committee meeting. And then it comes to us, it comes to the school committee, because this is, finally, ultimately our decision in terms of budget. That's one of the provinces, and so everybody understands what the charge is, but we would prefer to have administration and principals, department heads, in consultation, I'm sure, with their staff, to first make these cuts rather than our coming in and
Sure.
So that's about it. Anything else you want to add? You were there for that part.
No, I think you covered everything, and, we appreciate the effort that's going into getting us to where we need to be.
Okay, thank you.
There was something on the budget, some material I prepared I'd like to go over.
Okay.
Are there extra copies?
I can sort of get them here. Hang on one sec.
Okay.
Yeah, didn't I include them in the packets?
Well,
I
you
mean,
want
Mr.
Mary,
Mary
do you
has
have an
a
extra one for Mary?
Oh, I'm just considering.
That's all right.
That's right,
I can take notes.
there we are,
Okay,
real time.
all right.
Yeah.
I can- okay.
So what this spreadsheet is, a couple of highlights on it.
Mhm.
Looking at our revenue coming into the town from taxes and elsewhere, and comparing it to the growth of the assessments from the Neshoba School District. The assessments from the school district are growing faster than our revenue increase is going, which means that particularly our tax revenue, which is that's 90% of all of our revenue is from the property taxes. So when that happens, we're not able to cover the town budget using tax income. So we're using, last year we had to go use free cash. This year we have to go use more free cash. The consequence of doing that is we have enough free cash to fund some capital projects that are going to be on the town warrant this year, but we can't use it for that because we needed to balance the budget, right? So the town has to borrow money to fund these capital projects because there isn't enough free cash, because the budget can't be satisfied solely from the tax income. In the current fiscal year that we're in, and this is the most extreme example, and this is a far more extreme example than anything else in the current year, the town had about a $690,000 increase in taxes collected from the prior year. But you're taking more of that. You're taking almost 900,000. So for every dollar increase that we got over fiscal 19, we're giving $1.30 to the school district. Obviously, again, it's crowding out our ability to finance the capital. I've got some data here that shows you that the percentage of revenue consumed by the school district has been increasing for the past 5 years. And although there's a drop projected for fiscal 21, that assumes just a 3% increase. So that's certainly not a lot. But I think this perspective is useful about why we are preoccupied with the 3%. If we continue to crowd out the ability to pay for things with tax revenue, not this year, not next year, but eventually a 2.5% override will be needed, which is someplace nobody wants to go. So I hope if you want to go into this in detail, I'd be happy to do that today or some other time. But I hope that this is helpful in developing some perspective.
No, it is. It
Okay,
is.
thank you.
So, if I have questions, I'll take some time and look this over. And,
Oh, sure.
You know. Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe, once this whole budget season is over and we're done with town meeting and whatnot, then we're sort of in a lull. I think maybe coming back in, we can talk about a number of things and what maybe the state might or might not allow and some things, but,
Okay.
now is not the time to do
Okay.
that.
All right. I should have said at the beginning that Michael Horish wishes that he wasn't able to be here,
Yeah, right.
but there are two of us, and he's very, very active.
Soon to be through.
And that's
Nice
right.
segue into that.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so we'll talk about that because that was voted, as you're aware. I brought these. These have been used. Do you think I should go through this or at least give this?
I suggest handing it out,
Okay.
and then just do a very high level.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Would you like one too? Okay.
We got one for Jonathan too.
Oh, so that might be.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And if there's anything on here, this is the spreadsheet. This is the table that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has given us. And so what this spreadsheet does, which is really wonderful that Excel spreadsheets do, is that you plug in the numbers, and once we had our town clerks, and I especially wanted to say Pam Powell was very helpful. I sent emails and then went in person to each one of the town clerks and handed them, a hard copy. What Pam did was to coordinate so that everyone was using the same data point as they gave us the certified town populations according to census. So we have Bolton at 5571, Lancaster 6806, and Stowe 6880. And as we know, Lancaster and Stowe are much closer in terms of town population than Bolton is. However, what we were trying to find out, and I have to say that even disclosure, even before I was on committee, I wondered. I thought, I had an idea that it would have to do with population. At that point, I didn't even really know if it could be student population, or if it were town population. I figured that it was town. Turns out it absolutely is town population. And so I started looking at this. Pam Powell had said that Bolton was also thinking about this. But we had a little difficulty in the beginning because we couldn't find any kind of records that a review, which is supposed to be done every 5 years, and should have been, it was 2001, but the agreement is dated 2003. So then it was 6, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, and had not been done. It was, and we couldn't find anything in the town records, we couldn't find anything in the school records. So, and also there was some language that didn't seem to make sense, because they talked about standard 10 to 16% deviation. You can have a standard deviation. You can figure out what a standard deviation is, but not with it, not 10 to 16% in the middle of the word standard deviation. So going to the state, they said no. Most of these regional agreements are more are boilerplate, and I went to a workshop at MASC where they talked about that. After the workshop, I went up to the consultant, who is a former superintendent, showed him our contract, and he said, well, this is a little surprising that says 10 to 16%, it's usually 10%, and he said, I have no idea why the word standard is in there. This is not standard deviation. What this is tied to is a really important principle. It has to do with the 14th Amendment of the Constitution and equal rights protection, and which people oftentimes, when we learn about that, learn that it's on the federal level, the Constitution, but especially in the 1960s, the Supreme Court cases brought it down from the federal to the state, and we know, and we hear about gerrymandering, et cetera. That all has to do with this. But what I think is wonderful, you know, in a democratic society, that it comes right down to us at the local level. And so the one person, one vote means that each of us, as elected, especially this comes into play in a regional district, each of us on the committee should be representing an equal number of people in the composite of the 3 towns. And in an ideal, when I presented a couple of weeks ago, I had an ideal situation where every single town had the same population, and that meant that they had the same number of representatives, and it all worked out perfectly, but that's not real life. And so, just to walk you through this a little bit, the 3 populations, if you look in the population column, they're added together to be 19,257. Now, what you take, and this scenario is the current scenario of 8 members. I'm going to find out that this does not meet the requirement of the deviation or the one person, one vote. So I'll just go through, but the explanation is here too. So you take 8, and you divide 19,257 by 8, and you get 2,407, which is the ideal number that each one of us on school committee should be representing 2,407 people. Okay, in the second column, elected. We're going to take the Bolton number, and there are 2 of us who are on the committee, so we're going to divide 5,571 by 2, 2,786. And so and for Lancaster, and so their numbers are divided by 3 because they have 3 representatives. Okay, now I'm calling that 2,407 number, you know, that ideal number, the one person, one vote number. And you take that number and you divide it by the elected number. So you're going to put you're going to divide 2,407 by 2,786, and then for the other towns, 2,407 by 2,269, and 2,407 by 2,293. The table figures all this out. You just put the numbers in, it goes boom, 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 boom. And so the representation, Bolton comes out 86%, and Lancaster 106, and Stowe 105. Now, it also figures out the deviation from 100. And to find out what that span of deviation is, you add the 2 highest numbers, whether they're negative or positive, and you come out with 20%. So this is not 10 to 16%, it's 20%, and it doesn't meet the one person, one vote requirement. Hi there. So let's look on the next sheet. This is a scenario that if we were to have 3 members from Bolton, we need one of these 2 to look at. Okay, well, good. 3 members from Bolton and 3 from the other 2 towns. You know, this is hypothetical. And so if you go through this again, of course, the 3 town populations, underpopulation, come out to the same number. A little different now. We're going to divide 19,257 in that first column by 9. And so it's a lower number, 2,140. The next column, elected, again, we would take Bolton's number, 5,571, and divide it by that hypothetical 3 members, and it comes out 1,5. 1857, Lancaster is 2269, and Stowe is 2293. And then we have, we're divided 2140 by 1857, 2269, 2293, and we get Bolton 115%, and then 94, 93. The deviation from 100, 15, and 6, and 7, so add the two together, the two highest numbers, whether positive or negative, and you have 22. So this composition would not meet the one person, one vote. However, if we were to add, and we did, because this passed last night, if we add another Bolton rep, as well as a Stowe and a Lancaster rep, for a total of 11 elected members, let's look at that. And again, 19,257 divided by 11, 1751, and then you have the elected number, those three numbers, representation numbers, the deviation. Now we are under 10%. Any number under 10% is golden, and so it's 9%, and so it's 3, 4, 4, and those are weighted so that we now have one person, one vote compliance, and that's what we passed. So the next part of that is, though, that this needs to be approved by selectmen, right, to be able to be on the ballot? Is that right?
Well, actually, technically, yes, it's, the selectmen ultimately sign off on the ballot,
Yeah.
but the town clerk creates the ballot,
Okay,
so.
all right, so that went to you today,
Mhm.
and to Pam, and to the other towns, Kathy Codian.
Yeah, so Pam is aware that we'll have another
Yeah.
seat on the ballot for this year.
Okay, and I also want to say that Don has been very helpful. He's attended school committee meetings, sometimes being able to say what he wanted to, but now, it worked out a lot better, and at this last meeting than it had the meeting before. I met with Don and with Pam after that meeting to talk about that particular meeting on the 29th, and then Kathy Codian, who is the chairperson of the school committee, and I wanted to meet with town administrators and select at least a representative we could from the select board, and so I sent emails out prior to our meeting last night, just so that nobody would be really surprised. And so that's what we did. So again, we met first with Lancaster, and then with Bolton, and then with Stowe. So everybody knew ahead of time that this was a probable outcome, since the three scenarios, it was only door number 3 with 11 members that was going to work.
Right.
So that's where we are.
So walk me through the mechanism of how this is going to happen.
The mechanism by which it will happen is when the ballot for the annual town election is created, well, take a step back at caucus. People come to caucus and vie for the spot on the ballot just like they normally would. And then it'll be the normal election is held second Monday in May, and then it takes effect immediately.
But as I understood the agreement between the towns and the Neshoba Regional, changing the number of school committee people requires a vote of the town. You're changing the agreement itself.
What Mary has learned from Desi is that Desi has, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so
Okay.
let's see how well I do.
All right, you do it.
That Desi has said what this would constitute is an addendum to the current agreement rather than an amendment to the current agreement. And as an addendum, it does not require a town meeting vote. And that between this year and next year, there's going to be a review of the entire agreement, thank you, so that other things can be cleaned up as well. And next year, at next year's town meetings, all 3 towns would be voting on the final amended agreement.
You did very well. I just want to add one part in there, that as we do an amendment, then the school committee, there would be a subcommittee, and town is involved in that, as well as school committee is involved in that. So once DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, I always don't want to use too many acronyms. So as soon as they do their review, then it will come to us. We will include the town, sometimes you include other people too, and we'll look at all that they have recommended, because 2003, there, ed reform, next year, and there are laws, just to make sure that we're all in compliance. And then we will work on that, then it goes to the towns for a majority vote, it has to be all 3 towns. And then it goes back to DESE for the commissioner's signature. And something that hasn't always happened. When I went to that workshop, MASS, MASC, they talked about the two areas that especially regional districts need to look at, and it's membership and making sure they're in compliance with one person, one vote, and also any amendments that need to have been approved and have, by the town, even one word by the town, and then get the commissioner's signature. So we're going to do that. Exactly right.
Can we get that in writing from
Yes.
Desi?
Yes.
Because I think it would be very helpful to have the fact that we only need an amendment and not necessarily a town meeting.
Absolutely, because that was told to me. Christine Lynch, and just today, she's been out of, she's retired. She works part-time, she's been out of the office. And not only that, I had a little difficulty getting in touch with the 2 people in the department that I've spoken to, who will definitely do this, but DESE changed their email, so I don't know what's the whole server or and so things kept bouncing back to me, and now I have their new emails, and she, just today, I sent her everything and told her that I needed it in writing, recounted all that she had told me, and she said that I was right on everything, and that she would get to this as soon as she could.
Okay,
So
great.
that's, I thought I would have it by now, because she told me this on the 29th in anticipation of the meeting, and I said that out loud, I would have it. I will have it.
Okay, great.
Good.
Okay.
Super.
Okay.
Super.
Well, that's great news.
Okay,
Yeah, good
so
stuff.
you're happy?
Good stuff.
Okay, good.
All good stuff.
All right. So, part 3? You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so this is MSBA, the process. And so you might already have these, I don't know if you do.
I didn't have a packet last night, but I can.
Oh, okay. But
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
it's two-sided. So, just to go over just a little bit of history, the SOI, Statement of Interest, was submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, the MSBA, for Neshoba Regional High School by Superintendent Brooke Quenchi in 2018, and you know this part. And while our district wasn't moved forward at that time, the feedback was that our SOI was complete, no changes were needed, and the recommendation was that we would resubmit the same SOI, change the dates, whatever, which the superintendent did. And this time, we received an invitation for a meeting in December 2019. Superintendent, assistant superintendent, school committee chair, other school committee, faculty, town, I think town, did somebody from the town go? I'm not sure about that. Towns?
I don't think so.
Okay, it was a terrible day, I didn't go with them, but anyway, it was terrible weather day, not a terrible day, because the news that they got, as they were in there, was that Neshoba Regional was selected to go forward with 11 other districts to begin this complex process required by MSBA for a remodel or rebuild. So I'd like to echo something that Superintendent Quenchi stated to the school committee last night. She said, "We have no preconceived notion as to what the final building project may be or may not be. However, we'll enjoy the journey we're about to embark on. We have begun our initial work of outreach to staff in our 3 communities as we look for input regarding possibilities." So the process may result in a remodel, a rebuild, to some, or a complete degree for Neshoba Regional High School, or it may result in no change at all if that's the decision of the towns. So we're not, and I want to make clear that we're not talking necessarily about a new high school building. That's one of the options, but those options include renovation, a partial renovation, and construction of a new part of the building, or building a whole new high school.
Right.
So just so that people in the community understand that this process will go forward, and we'll find out more as we go through. The module 1, you'll see the top there. It's called the eligibility period. It has benchmarks, which are right there. It doesn't officially begin until June 1st. And it runs through February 26th, yeah, on that side with the arrows of the green and the yellow, okay? But Neshoba, as many other districts that are forward-thinking, they're preparing to be ready for June 1st, and this is fine to do. So Superintendent Clunchy and the administration has involved faculty and students in thinking about the education Neshoba is currently offering and how to develop current curricula and initiatives to best serve the needs of Neshoba students now and in the future. So this thinking necessarily involves a type of learning spaces and opportunities that will best fit and adapt to evolving educational opportunities. So to facilitate this creative process and collaborative process, Superintendent Clunchy brought in Dr. Jake Foster as a consultant. And last night's school committee meeting, he presented his background. He has background in teacher education, curriculum design, including overseeing STEM initiatives at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, as well as his current work, which is in coaching schools on school design. So he's been active at the high school since January. He's been meeting with faculty, students, and administration to introduce the process, work with the visioning committee that's there, that has completed and submitted 2 major grants, grant applications in consultation with Dr. Foster to help in the facilitation of this work. And we always love to hear about grants, because, competitive grants can be another source
Right.
that take some of the pressure off the district budget. Superintendent Clunchy has sent out, she sent out memos to the families and the faculty and students, and she has mentioned some of the areas at Neshoba Regional that are in need of remediation, all of which I believe you're very familiar with. Need for new roof, limitations of the one public well, full replacement of boiler room systems for hot water circulation, for air handlers, failing insulation, for wiring throughout the building, sewer system that sometimes backs up into an athletic storage area, and a mechanical room. And so all these conditions are detailed in her memo. It's called Potential School Building Project that went out. And she plans to send out future memos to continue communicating with the Neshoba Regional School District community regarding classroom and common area issues and concerns, and then a memo on instructional and educational limitations felt by the current faculty there. I also want to direct people to a great article, a comprehensive article on the MSBA process by Grace Fiore, editor of The Chieftain, this week. So if you want to read a great article, read that. Last night, Superintendent Clunchy presented regarding the cost of a feasibility study, and which is required by MSBA. So here we are, talking about money and borrowing. So at the prior meeting, Brooke had presented on the cost of the feasibility studies that MSBA listed for other districts who've already gone through the whole process. And we looked at them. I mean, nobody is exactly like Neshoba, but there's some similar enrollments, and we were looking at the amounts, and what school committee asked was that administration go back and call as many districts as possible to get a better sense of what we should put in for Neshoba. And the districts who answered the calls, it's not always easy to get, when you're doing that, canvassing, to get responses, but they gave some good advice. They said to look to the higher amount that you might be thinking, but use the language not to exceed, since some of the communities, as they went forward, they didn't have enough planned there, and since we know that if the project goes forward, the cost will be reduced by the amount of whatever our reimbursement rate turns out to be from MSBA, and we don't have a number on that right now. I mean, Dawn was helpful in talking just in general terms, but we have to wait and see on that. But so if the community decided not to construct a new or renovate the old, we would be responsible for the full cost of the borrowing. So at this time, the plan is to work with the towns on a warrant for the May annual town meetings to borrow for the feasibility study of an amount, quote, not to exceed $2 million.
This annual coming?
Yeah.
The article would be on this year's warrant. The borrowing would not take place until, we wouldn't have to do an appropriation. But the article, you'll see the draft warrant we have tonight, I have a placeholder on it.
Okay. And I thought too, that this is kind of quick, and couldn't we perhaps have some kind of a special town meeting or town meeting in the fall. And Don was helpful on that too, that some towns have that planned, that, as you said, special town meetings don't necessarily bring out enough of a quorum, enough people to be able to, and there's a cost involved, and what we're all being careful of is to limit wherever we can any additional costs. So last night too, it was a long meeting, and we also, the school committee created a subcommittee just for this feasibility, just to make sure that we have school committee, we have Neshoba, other regional district community members, faculty, students, and town people to educate about the need for the feasibility study and to explain the cost. Because if we don't have town approval for a feasibility study as we get to the June 1st to February, the end of February, then we're not going to be able to do anything. So it's an inconvenient time for us in terms of annual town meetings. It's fast here, and yet things have to be done before we could have the next town meeting. So I did bring up, could we do a special, but Brooke, in consultation with the 3 town administrators, the consensus was to do it now.
And one point that Brooke made as well, which was a good point, I thought, was that if we do it all at the same time now at an annual town meeting, and it fails somewhere, then it's time to regroup and try to go back out and make another effort in the fall or at some point, because the 270-day clock starts June 1st, I think it is. So that takes us to February.
Yeah.
So if you wait and do it in the fall, there's really not a lot of time to go back and regroup and try to do another town meeting, because it would have to be another special town meeting, because the annual is first Monday in May, so that would be outside the deadline.
Right.
I hope they refine that number of 2 million a little more.
I think the range was 1.5 million to 2, and the advice was to go with the high end.
And to go not to exceed, so with the hope that as some projects have come in under, septic, was that the one that came in under, that this could too. And also with the hope that things would progress, so there would be a reimbursement factor, not like the old days back in the early 2000s, where there was some really great reimbursement rates. But still, it's still worth it, because we won't have to pay for the whole project, whatever it is. And the feasibility study would get rolled into that, and the reimbursement.
So the feasibility study is the first 2 lines, or it's just,
It's the second line.
I think it's
okay, so it's not the preparation?
No.
So it's the
No.
scope
Yeah,
definition?
it's
Yeah.
module
And
3.
it includes schematic design?
Yep, it does.
Very rough schematic
Yeah,
design.
yeah,
Right.
well, actually, module 4 gets into the actual schematic design.
Yeah.
The fun module is module 8, when the project's complete. I went through all the modules with Minuteman, so
That's good.
So module 4 is kind of the conceptual sketching,
That's right.
not the detailed building.
That's right, the detailed design is module 6, actually.
Right.
So where we are right now, on the other side of, this sheet, this is a focus on the educational profile. And so that is something that it's ongoing in the district anyway, looking at our educational programs, looking at the initiatives, trying as much as possible to dovetail, and a lot of this does dovetail so well together. Not that there will be new initiatives, but that the initiatives that we have going right now, innovative mindset frame, social emotional learning, that all of this will contribute to the vision for what, and as well as technology. I should, obviously talk about the way technology is changing so quickly. We have to be visioning what will students need, and what kind of technology should be planned for. So that's a big overview.
The consultant that the school district hired, was it Dr. Foster?
Yes, Dr. Jacob Foster, Jake.
The MSBA, when you work with them, they have a pool of architects you work with, they have a pool of project managers you gotta pick from. Is there a pool of consultants like this that the MSBA has, and if so, is Dr. Foster
I
one?
don't know the answer to that.
Oh,
I do know that Superintendent Plenchey has worked with him before, that he has worked with other districts, especially on this first phase, the educational profile.
For MSBA projects.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know that he's in,
What's his title for this project?
I would say he's a consultant right now, for this educational profile. But we have to be careful that we're not actually starting anything until June 1st. What they did, from what I understand, is that they have 11 districts, and so they have a staggered start time, and our staggered start time turned out to be June 1st. So it's important. This is preliminary, this is visioning. I don't know if you call him vision, he's visioning consultant, I'm not sure what his title is, but I am appreciative of the fact that 2 major grants, he has been helpful in submitting, so.
Don, what was the reimbursement rates you discussed?
Uh,
last night?
Let's see, well, somebody, I forget who it was, it's probably not relevant who it was, but somebody made the comment about, well, back in 2003, we should look at the reimbursement rate that we got back in 2003, and among other things, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into the reimbursement rate, but back then, if I'm not mistaken, I think the minimum for the reimbursement rate was 40%, and then you built off of that. Right around the time we were doing Minuteman, we started getting in Minuteman, the bottom, I shouldn't say bottom, the minimum was lowered to 30%. So you can't do a direct correlation.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's various factors, whether it's, there's the wealth factor, there's a lot of different things. So that would be apples to apples. But I know Minuteman's reimbursal it's either 45 or 48 when all things were completed. And we do have some affluent communities in Minuteman too, but
Do you know what the reimbursement rate was for that elementary school in Stowe that just opened a couple of years ago?
I have no idea. No idea. So it definitely varies. You really can't draw a line between projects or anything like that. But the minimum is 30, and then you start from there, and of course you build up, and you get different points for different things. For instance, depending on how green the building is, you get points for that, for example. So, and if the Minuteman building was any greener, it would be edible, so.
Okay, so that's
Well,
it.
great, no, thank you very much,
Okay.
Mary. This has been very informative.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a nice night now. All right, next up on our agenda is a request from Parks and Recreation to place a sign at Persons Park. Ed Sterling, come on down.
Good evening, good evening.
Hi, Ed.
I
See you
Nice
tomorrow.
to see you, sir.
Sir,
How are you?
absolutely, sir. Thank you, sir.
Oh.
All right. So, working with Historical and Friends of Persons Park, the request seemed very reasonable to create a sign, because the property itself is so hidden, if you will, on Route 85. I took a couple of photos, and I'm a very poor photoshopper, but I photoshopped in with simply orange
Right.
poles just for visibility, some sense of where it might go. You'll notice there's a telephone pole on the north side, as well as the historical district sign on the black pole. And I thought to keep it separate from being hidden perhaps by the telephone pole and the other sign, if it went on the left side of the driveway, it would be a better location. There's a tiny little bump. It's kind of a little rise. It's a rock pile perhaps. It looks like it's about 2 feet high and set back enough that I think plowing would not damage the sign.
Mm-hmm.
The idea would be to have 2 signs sandwiched on a single pole.
Mm-hmm.
One sign points in for the northbound traffic, one points in for the southbound traffic. Therefore, it's 2 signs, $18 a piece, plus change. And again, perhaps screwed in by some common bolt on a single pole. Joe, if you might supply us with a pole, we could purchase one if necessary and install it for us if you gentlemen feel it's appropriate to have such a sign. It is a hidden park. I was kind of thinking I don't know of really a similar situation in Bolton. Generally, we have larger wooden signs that have been put up by Boy Scouts or the Bolton Conservation Trust, something similar to that.
Is this the size of the sign?
It's obviously 18 by 18.
Okay, so.
Yeah, it was one time incorrectly reported in the minutes as being 12 by 6.
Yeah.
A digit had been dropped.
In that case, it's like,
Had been
that was
dropped.
Person's Park. we
I
just
understand.
passed here."
Right. Exactly, so the feeling is 18 by 18 roughly would be
That's fine.
a good visible sign. Very simple, white metal painted with black and a black edge around it.
So the person family they were called Persons?
Yes, it was Dr.
Okay.
Persons, exactly.
Okay.
And the gift was given roughly 1996. I was a selectman at the time. It was given to the town. Management of it has been an issue over the years. Bolton Conservation Trust did initially jump in. Later on, there was some controversy about how much the trust was putting in at the property. There was a sign installed by the trust at one time. And again, I think there was a sense that this wasn't trust property, this was town property. So the sign itself actually was taken out and put behind the old garage. Mrs. Remington and Mrs. Balco have put in a tremendous amount of time over the years, I think, trying to manage the cottage, but it was 80 years old plus at the time of the gift, and it has not received very much TLC. It's gotten a lot of love, thanks to the ladies. But we haven't put any money in really as a town. Now, at some point, apparently a Title V was put in, and that's past my time being a selectman and being on Parks and Recreation. So I don't quite know if we failed a Title V test at some point, but the system was installed. I don't know at what expense. And really, though, it really hasn't been used because, again, a variety of issues, I guess, in terms of who should be there and the maintenance of the cottage and management of the cottage. Even at the start, there was a feeling that, I'll say town hall in quotes, did not want to be responsible to come over to have to open it up, wait for a group to appear, maybe manage the group who was using it, clean up afterwards, lock the cottage and come back. So it has had that problem over the years, being rather hidden and being off by itself and being invisible from the road. It's been difficult really to kind of manage the usage of it. So it has not seen much. Parks and Recreation, which I was on from about 2002 to 2005, we did meet there. I think in subsequent couple years, there was continued meetings there, but it has not really seen much regular use. I believe it's been an object of vandalism.
It has.
And teenagers have climbed up the roof, broken in the windows, I guess had pot parties and so on. And right now, it's completely sealed, plywood on every window, every door. I went over with keys, realized that I needed a screwdriver if I was going to get inside, and so I did not do that, of course. And I did go with the fire chief just to look around the building presently to see what condition it's in.
Okay.
And it is sadly kind of rotting away. And so
Yeah,
we're at a crossroads of doing something
But the
about it.
cottage aside, it's a very nice piece of
It is
property.
beautiful, there's no doubt, yes.
Right. I mean,
And so the park is getting used
Yeah.
by various people. We don't require residency permits or anything, so it's hard to say who is using it, but it did see regular use this summer
Yeah.
from people using the dock and the beach.
Yeah.
Yep, so,
Yeah, what I've seen is, some people with their dogs like to go there to swim. It's like
Yes.
one of those places where
agreed.
I don't think you can do that at the town beach, maybe.
You're probably right, and we
There's
wanted to put
a little
up,
bit of fishing, a little
Exactly,
bit of
yes,
boating,
yes.
and then some swimming as well.
Right. So we're concerned about that, sort of one of these swim at your own risk, I think needs to be posted at the property down by the
I think
beach.
that would be a very good idea.
Exactly, yeah.
But it is good to have a sign. I think might be a number of people in town, maybe new to town, who
Have
don't
no idea.
know
Right.
what that driveway looks like,
Agreed.
a private driveway, so it
Right.
is good. I don't know if there's a way to, relate this to Bolton, that it's a Bolton park.
There's a nice sign as you enter, so there's a
Okay.
bit of a, kind of a curvy twist, a bit of an S, if you will, as you enter the driveway, and there's a sort of an eye of the needle roundabout with a flagpole as you
Yeah.
reach the cottage. And so on the way in, there's quite a nice sign. I'd say it's probably about 36 by 24, and it says this is a gift of the person's family, welcome to person's park. Yep, exactly.
All right, then let's,
Make a motion to permit Parks and Recreation to place a 12 by 18 sign at Persons Park, announcing the location of Persons Park.
Second,
Might we fight over the cost of it? If it's a town property, is it appropriate that the town fund this $36, or is your preference to have Parks and Recreation absorb that cost?
It's all one big budget, you know, so I mean, I'm sure I could find the $36 somewhere if it's not budgeted for Parks and Rec, I'm sure I could.
And could we ask Director Lynch, would you be able to find us a signpost and install it?
Postal length is more than 36.
I understand, okay.
I'm sure we can find
Would
it.
this be a gift?
I'm sure we can find it.
Thank you, thank you.
all right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I appreciate it, thank you so much.
very persuasive.
Thank you, sir, thank you.
Okay, great.
Would you like to keep any drawings for the record?
I'll take them.
Would you like
Well, I
them?
have the drawings, I'll take the
Very good.
locations though.
Okay, keep them all, thank
All
you.
right, thanks, Ed, appreciate it. All right, next up is a discussion and possible vote to reduce the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour on Main Street. Joseph Lynch.
Take the cop?
Sure, please do.
Hi, Joe.
Good evening, everybody. How you doing?
Good.
So, this is an interest of the town, the selectmen, various committees and boards have had on their minds for, down there, a couple of decades probably, but most recently for, pretty solid on their minds for the past 5 years. DOT in the past used to have exclusive control over setting speed limits within town. And with the ultimate approval of that, and then the selectmen would adopt local regulation. The Governor's Municipal Modernization Act of 2016 looked to streamline, among a whole bunch of policies across the entire Commonwealth, speed regulations. And at town meeting of 2018, we, as a community at town meeting, adopted provisions to adopt safety zones and thickly settled speed zones. So we did the first step back then at town meeting. We wrangled back and forth with DOT of our desire to do that, and, you know, there is clearly still even a disagreement. The DOT thinks they have authority, and we've read the law, and we read it carefully, we dissected the law. And having done all of that, felt confident you have the exclusive and sole right to do that. We had town council review it, and they agree with that. So we believe, now we still have to meet the warrants, and I did. I went out and did a warrant analysis. I measured various roadway segments, and the vote motion that's drafted speaks for itself. It begins at 601 Main Street. It's the very first house when you're heading westbound, right after the office park. On the right, it's number 601, and extends all the way to Manor, and Manor at Harvard. And it meets the definition of thickly settled, and as such, you guys have the authority to reduce it to 25 miles an hour if you wish to do that. And we then would notify the regulations spell right out, we would have to notify DOT that that's what action this board has done. And my guess will be, they will probably contest it, but we feel we're on solid ground.
And you said something that this needs to be on the warrant?
No, there were he took
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry, warrant is a traffic analysis, I'm sorry.
Okay, we got a lot of warrants going on.
No, it's a traffic
There's an
analysis.
There's official response, there's a letter, there's a form. As part of your vote, you can authorize me to sign the letter on your behalf and submit the form.
Okay.
And I'm sure I'll hear from Barry at some point.
Send my regards. All right, no, I think it's fine, let's give it a shot.
So I will move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the town administrator to sign the thickly settled special speed regulation for Main Street between 601 Main Street and the intersection of Main Street and Manor Road and Harvard Road.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And was that to also adopt a regulation? Because this action this evening has to adopt a regulation. You folks need to sign it. Town clerk will attest to it tomorrow, which will accompanied Don's letter to Governor Barry to prompt Barry's phone call.
This is the one.
So do you need a separate vote for them, for that?
Yeah,
I think it needs, why don't you just read this? That's the motion that ought to be read,
All right,
to make sure we dot the i's, cross the t's.
all right, so, we have a motion, we have a, regulation of Town of Bolton thickly settled special speed regulation in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 17C. The Bolton Board of Selectmen has adopted the special speed regulation of 25 miles per hour along a thickly settled segment of Main Street, beginning at 601 Main Street, which is 1,422 feet west of the center of the intersection of Main Street and Sugar Road, and continues westerly approximately 4,036 feet to the intersection of Main Street, Manor Road, and Harvard Road, and 25 miles per hour beginning at the intersection of Main Street, Manor Road, and Harvard Road, and continuing easterly approximately 4,036 feet to 601 Main Street, which is 1,422 feet west of the center of the intersection of Main Street and Sugar Road. So you gotta do it for both.
In both directions. Do it in both directions. That language is what makes it bulletproof for writing citations.
Yeah.
so I will second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so.
Thank you very much.
And we need to sign it.
And you do, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So can you have separate speed limits for?
In different
easterly and-
directions?
Yes.
You could.
Then-
It's seldom done, if ever.
This is the belt and suspenders approach. Okay.
That'll be a section in the book I write after I retire.
Don, did you want to sign this now too?
Can you can include in that the Melrose Board of Aldermen who voted to make a dead-end street one-way, because people who live there know, they just wanted to discourage the other people from using it.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Super.
That would never happen here, for sure.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bill, are you gonna be coming back
I'll be
later?
sitting tight here, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right, well, next up is the town administrator report.
All right, as part of our recent nostalgia craze, I put Minuteman Update back on here. We haven't had it for a few weeks. Largely because I went to the managers meeting that Superintendent Bookquillen posted last Friday to review the assessments with the different managers. And as I said before, our assessment is basically flat. It's actually down slightly, $38,000 or so. I made the observation, I didn't know some of the managers in the room, and I asked the superintendent if there was a discount because I was on the building committee, and the other managers were looking at me like I might be serious, so I had to clean that up. But so just a couple of highlights from the presentation was, it says, we have boosted enrollment tremendously and anticipate accepting students only from in-district towns next year. You remember way back when there was a controversy about we were building it too big because we were never gonna be able to fill it. And already we don't have room for new out-of-district students. We received state approval to institute a capital fee on non-district towns, which will result in an additional $900,000 in revenue for FY21. As you remember, that was controversial. We were looking at, okay, we're gonna have all these out-of-district students coming in, they should be paying their fair share of the capital. No regional district had done that before. So we pushed that and got it through the legislature, and it got signed off. Governor Baker also signed House Bill 4503, which provides Minuteman the authority to lease portions of its property for public-private revenue-generating partnerships. Specifically, that's for athletic fields, because we had to get rid of the athletic fields to make room for everything. And MSBA's won't pay for new athletic fields. So Superintendent Bookquillen got pretty creative, got this legislation through, and now we can partner with third parties that were new make contributions towards a new fields. So I thought that was
Those
great.
new fields will be where the old building was demolished?
Once it's demolished, yeah, it's a pretty interesting site right now. Just to give you an idea of in-district total applications, in the recruitment year of 2018-2019, we had 157 in-district applications. In the recruiting year 2019-2020, there were 230. So huge increase there. And 33 to 45% of students who were out of district per year from 2005 to 2020. Out of district students will decline from 16% now to 0% by FY '23. And then one achievement of the class of 2019, 63% of students entered college. 33% entered their careers, and 3% of students entered advanced technical training. All the while, the percentage of students on IEPs is still 49%. So it's a very high achieving school, and
Great.
I think they've done extremely well.
May I ask? Did you get an indication that the facilities might be able to be rented out as the old Minuteman building was in the past to private groups?
I believe they will be, yes.
Thank you.
Actually, one of the things I'm sure the people might want to use at some point if it becomes available is the state-of-the-art theater. Because it's amazing, that theater is incredible. So that's that. The MVP grant, last Wednesday, Rebecca and I did go to New Bedford. Governor Baker was there, Lieutenant Governor Polito, the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Kathleen Theoratis, and the event was hosted by the Mayor of New Bedford. And we did indeed receive a $15,000 award to go off and begin our planning for future activities that we can pursue grants for. I signed a contract today with the consultant who's going to go off and put the plan together. The next round of funding is in June, and the consultant knows we have to be ready to submit another grant in June, so they're committed to get the planning work done. That was a really nice event. I sent you an email that had the picture there. Very nice event, and Rebecca did a really good job, and she has no qualms about networking. She did a really nice job working.
Congratulations.
Now, do you need us to appoint you as the selectmen's representative to the MVP committee?
Yes, I do need, I should be, I recommend that I'm the selectman's representative to the.
You're not gonna demand it, Don?
No. No.
So I move that the selectmen appoint the town administrator as their representative on the MVP grant committee.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Truck exclusion update, I have nothing new to report. I've not been invited to Berlin yet, and the Clinton selectmen have not voted yet. But so far, I think we're being viewed favorably. I have not been told that we're not, at least not officially. Next, sexual harassment training update. I just wanted you to know that the last training for this cycle is being held at the library on March 9th at 1 p.m. And I'm telling you this because I think part of what we discussed as we worked on sexual harassment training and harassment training in general is at some point I think we should start getting members of boards and committees, some boards and committees anyway, exposure to the training. We do have room at that training, so I thought I'd start with the selectmen. If any of the selectmen are interested and available, it might be helpful for any or all of you to attend. If more than one of you were to attend, Jenny would post it.
What was that date?
It's March 9th at 1 p.m. at the library. I will ask other boards and committees in the future, not all of them, but perhaps those that may have a staff person reporting into them, dotted line. Might be a good idea, but I thought the selectmen setting the example could be helpful. And this harassment training will be done on an every other year basis. It's not like we're doing this right now because we've got a problem, but it's training, we're being proactive, we need to stay on top of it.
Okay.
Next, an update on integrated health products, as I informed the selectmen, but we didn't discuss this at the last selectmen's meeting. After going through the process of the community host agreement, et cetera, for integrated health products to purchase the Cobham building, they withdrew they decided not to exercise their option to purchase the building. And in fact, Ted informed me that he was probably gonna shut down integrated health products altogether and focus on Temescal wellness. Major impact coming from the governor's vaping ban and the impact in sales, et cetera. So I was pretty disappointed by that after all the work that went into that, and it seemed like a good fit for the property, good tax revenue for us. Now, the good news is, and I didn't see this coming this quickly, there's another outfit that is also interested in the building. I did a walkthrough with them on Monday, and I met with the CEO yesterday, and they have, as of yesterday, signed a letter, a commitment, an intent to purchase if everything can be sorted out with the town. The name of the company is Main Street Medicals. They are in other locations already. They are in Williamstown, Orange, I believe in the process, I don't know if it's final yet, but at least in the process in Tisdale, Martha's Vineyard, and also just got approved for Roslindale in Boston.
So they're the same type of proposal, they use it for manufacturing?
Actually, it'll be broader than that. They would like to do everything. They would propose to have a grow facility and manufacturing in the large building in the rear, and retail and deliveries in the small building in the front. So in that case, of course, a community host agreement still to be negotiated, but they made it very clear to me that we would be looking at 3% of all output taxable, and then from the retail side, there's an additional 3% sales tax. So we're talking some pretty significant money if it were to come to fruition. And obviously, there's a lot of due diligence to go through on both sides. But we do have experience in doing that now, to a certain extent, and Brian Fockett, Mark O'Connell is one of the best lawyers in the county when it comes to working on things like that. So I think we'll be well positioned to try to sort through that. The last thing I have for you is, and this is not on the agenda, this just came in today. Pam Powell has asked that the selectmen sign the annual initial boundary validation forms. I think we have 4 or 5 copies of it. And it's effectively, it revalidates the boundaries for the town every year. And we have those forms right there, and,
That's just a single copy.
I'm sorry, I thought we had multiples.
That's the other thing.
Oh, okay, I'm confusing it it's been a long day, I conflated it with something else, but, it's a pro forma form, but it just came in today, but if the board would vote to sign it, it would be appreciated by the town clerk.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2020 initial boundary validation program form.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Thank you. And unless the selectmen have any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Selectmen's business. And first up is public service announcements. Any public service announcements today?
I do.
Okay.
I have 2 actually. Tomorrow, appearing at the Bolton Bean from 8:30 to 9:30 will be coffee with the town administrator.
The event of the week.
Well, it's an interesting way for somebody to celebrate Valentine's Day.
Flowers,
Flowers, candy,
Oh, look at that.
liquor, whatever there might be. And then on a more serious note, just wanted to let you know that it was just organized this week that the Mosquito Control Subcommittee will be having a public meeting and presentation at 7 p.m. in the Florence Sawyer School Auditorium on March 5th at 7 p.m. So,
Great.
and that notice is getting out
they're having it in the auditorium, is there a presentation they're gonna be doing, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The library was not available. We looked at the public safety building training room, which happened to be available that night, but with limited parking and people having to park over Trinity, and it's still dark this time of year and could be slippery, we thought perhaps Florence Sawyer was a better venue for it.
So the mosquito control committee has met several times. They've got some things they want to present to the town.
Yes, I think there have been 4 meetings so far, as I recall.
Okay.
And Chairman Scott
That's
Powell was
March 6th?
March 5th. I'm sorry, March 5th, yes, at 7 PM. Actually, now I think of it, it's the same day as the training that I told you about, so it could be a busy day for the selectmen. And also, if please let Jenny know if you'll be attending, and we will post you.
I thought March 9th was the training.
March 9th.
It is, I just want to see if you're paying attention. Oops. And, just as we cross-post you for all advisory meetings, we cross-post you for that.
Anything else? Public service?
No,
None?
thank you.
All right, next up is to call the caucus for March 2nd, 2020 at 7:30 at the Bolton Public Library
So
and
moved.
execute the notice. Do I have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next up is execute the warrant for the presidential primary on March 3rd, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Acceptance of gifts since October 16th through December 30th, 2020. And do we have a list?
Oh,
We do.
Oh, do we have a list?
Wow. Okay. Shall I read them off? Why not? All right, so the gifts we're accepting so far for, right now for FY20. Gerald Pryor, amount of $200 for the Hometown Heroes. Bolton Capital Group, $2,000 for the Hometown Heroes. John and Irene Foster, $50, Hometown Heroes. Michael and Clara Murphy, $250, Hometown Heroes. The Ochsner Charitable Foundation, $100, Senior Fuel Assistance. Linda and Robert King, $25, Senior Fuel. Bolton's Lion Club, $1,000, Senior Fuel. Bolton Senior Citizens Association, $1,220, Senior Fuel Assistance. Various, $1,100, Hometown Heroes. Various, $870, wreath donation. 626 Main, $30, wreath donation. Bolton Bean, $30, wreath donation. Various, $215, Hometown Heroes. John Crowitz, $100, Senior Fuel Assistance. Rosemary Goyette, $100, Senior Fuel Assistance. Pam Powell, $100, Senior Fuel Assistance. Versol Oil, $200, Senior Fuel Assistance. Various, $500, Hometown Heroes. We have totals, Conservation Gift Fund, Hometown Heroes of $4,315. Library Memorial Fund, Parks and Rec Gift Fund, Senior Fuel Assistance Allowance, $2,845. Wreath Donation Fund, $930, for a total of $8,090.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, okay. Next up is to review the first draft of the 2019 Board of Selectmen Annual Report.
I made some edits on some numbers, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to get them.
Hold on a second. Here we go. Okay. Alrighty.
First paragraph, fourth line, about halfway across, you say free cash stood at, I believe, was $124,650, not $134,650.
Okay. That's the number I got. So 124, 650. Okay.
Fourth paragraph, I think you want to say there are a number of positive events that occurred in 2019, not 2018. The fourth paragraph.
Oh, fourth paragraph, sorry. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, at the end of the following paragraph, the last line, the interest savings, it would be over 550,000, not 350,000.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was, that's why it's highlighted.
And, another guy. No, I didn't. That was it.
That's it, for you?
That's all I had, that's one.
Okay. The second paragraph I did plagiarize generously from the minutes of one of the meetings. That was information you had provided
Right.
to us.
The math is a little bit off in the paragraph, but I think people understand it.
Right.
Oh, I did have one other suggestion, the very last line on the first page. I suggested says this project was possible due to an award of a $975,000 or $975K Mass Works grant, period.
All right. Okay. All right. Do that.
Nice job, Stan.
Bob, got any comments?
Um,
One more time.
You're welcome, Nikki Magashi. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Thank you.
Magaki, as the new executive director. We also have, is it Lisa Dion from Council on Aging who's due? And,
Was that last year?
She retired, right?
Sheila retired,
Okay.
and then Lisa came in
and then
and,
we have, her name is escaping me right now, the woman who's
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
oh, as a new employee,
Yeah, new.
Ally Webb, yes.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. Can you just give me those names in an email
And-
and I'll plug them in?
And also another new employee would be Kristen Zena, who replaced Jenny when she became my administrative assistant.
And then Kelly.
And then Kelly, well, no, Kelly's this year.
Okay.
And Cynthia left this year, which is why we didn't mention it in the
Okay.
2019 report.
Didn't Kelly start before?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, Kelly started in December.
All right, one more name and title, and I'll throw it in.
So this is for calendar year?
Calendar year.
Calendar
Year. Okay.
Calendar year.
All right.
In my report, I will also mention all the promotions, you know, and, which you don't necessarily need to put in yours, but, such as Michelle becoming collector.
Yeah.
And Kristen
Right.
taking on the role as HR
I
director.
think it's appropriate to select and recognize those changes.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I'll go back and make the edits that you suggest, and I'll get your email, and we'll do that again and send them a spit out. Cool. All right. Okey-dokey. Next up is review of the first draft of the ATM warrant.
And so I can't stress enough that this is a first draft, and the intent of going through this is really just to give you a feel and a flavor of what's coming. There'll be a revised draft to go through again, for any changes at the February 26th meeting. And then the first meeting in March is when, town council will be in and the town moderator will be in, and you'll vote most, if not all, of your recommendations that night. So this is just so, much of the stuff is pro forma, obviously. Article 1, accept annual reports. Article 2, we have 3 unpaid bills from fiscal 2019, bills that weren't gotten in on time by the vendor. Article 3, it's premature, though that's the last article to be done. Article 4, the spending limits of revolving fund accounts. That's standard every year. They need to be renewed every year. Article 5 would be a new revolving fund for the senior van. Council has recommended to create this table and package it that way.
Okay.
And a spending limit of $16,000 to be established. Also, excuse me, Article 6, Parks and Recreation revolving account, has been requested by Parks and Rec with a spending limit of $8,000. Between now and the next meeting, we're gonna speak to council about can we put the content of Article 6 in the table that exists for Article 5 and just expand it into that, just to make it a little easier. The OPEB Trust, Article 7, is something that has been recommended by bond counsel that we do. I haven't written a summary yet for that. But again, very pro forma. We've had, oh no, I'm sorry, the summary is here. And actually Kristen wrote it. It just adopts certain things and to address a number of issues about the nature of the fund, et cetera, et cetera. So again, very pro forma. I don't believe that one will be controversial. We have limited zoning articles this year, especially after last night's public hearing. One was withdrawn. So not because it wasn't valid, but because since the master plan steering committee is working, the feeling was it should get through the master planning process and bring the particular article that was removed back next year. So Article 8 is to codify the ability to have bed and breakfast established in Bolton. There is one bed and breakfast currently in Bolton, but it preceded zoning, so it's grandfathered.
Okay.
Next article, fees in lieu of units pursuant to the inclusionary housing section of zoning. Again, it very basically, the general bylaw allows the town to impose a municipal charges lien on real property for fees in lieu of units required under the inclusionary housing bylaw. In the event that we had a large development going on and we needed to be able to collect these types of things, we would have the ability to do it. And also Article 10, I'm sorry, I conflated the two. The explanation I just gave for Article 9 is actually Article 10, where it says this article provides a level of surety that fees in lieu of units will be paid to the town in the event that an applicant sells off all of the lots within a development or chooses to walk away from a project under construction. Going back to Article 9, it simply says this general bylaw allows to impose a municipal charges lien on real property for fee in lieu of units required under the inclusionary bylaw. So those are the only 3 zoning articles coming forward this year.
Now, you said something this afternoon that there was an additional zoning article.
If there was an additional, well, 9 and 10 were combined when we met with Erica this morning.
Mhm.
So this separation came like an hour before our meeting
Right.
by recommendation.
Well, no, I saw something that there was a repeat of an article that failed last year.
Yeah, that was withdrawn
That was withdrawn, okay. Do we know why it was withdrawn?
because of,
Oh, that's not
it was
okay.
decided to
Okay.
hold off until the
Okay,
master plan was done.
okay.
Article 11, replace the failed culvert on Wattaquatta Kill at Manor Road. Right now, we're looking at $420,000, so the assumption is we will borrow for some or all of that. That could change, but that's why that's listed as a 2/3 majority. All the other capital articles are listed as simple majority because I'm anticipating that we will be able to use free cash for the remainders. So
Okay.
Article 12, diesel exhaust particulate filter on the generator at the public safety building. We have an air quality issue in the public safety building at times. now when the generator is running, and this is the estimate that we have at this point to try to deal with that. Article 13, turf management mower / tractor, proposed to get 4 new mower / tractors for the DPW for the upcoming season, to make sure that we have equipment that's OSHA compliant. Article 14, painting in the library, to trim at the library, $50,000, also based on a quote that we received. All the wood trim at the library has essentially failed. Article 15, 4 overhead garage doors at the DPW barn. The door panels to all 4 doors are deteriorated by corrosion. The spring lifting mechanisms and tracks are in poor condition and need frequent repair when they break. Vehicle movement in and out of those doors is very frequent. Reliability is essential and critical in an emergency response mode. The next 2 articles are for the school. The schools, Article 16, Sawyer domestic water booster pump and controls.
Is that new?
Is it new?
Yeah. I don't know, has it always been on the list?
It came late. I didn't get the request from the schools until late.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, both of these were late coming. So basically, this pump pressurizes the water and controls pressures for the water at the 2 buildings. The pump is, I guess, very much at its end of life and useful life expectancy. It hasn't failed, but if we wait until it fails, there'll be no potable water for the building until we replace it, and school won't be able to be conducted. So we need to stay out ahead of this and get this taken care of. And window repairs, the window balances at the Sawyer School building have failed, are in need of replacement or repair for proper operation. This presents a safety issue due to the weight of the windows, along with the need for the ability to provide additional ventilation in the warmer months. So to be able to safely open the windows and keep them open, $14,000 for that. And right now, just as a notation, a couple of the placeholders. Article 18, the easement that we would do with the Boy Scouts over at Persons Park if we were to sort that out. And on advice of council, it's been written this way, so town meeting will provide the authorization to the selectmen to enter into a lien agreement, and then we would create a term sheet so we would negotiate a term sheet afterwards. This gives the selectmen the ability and the authority to negotiate it without having to go back to town meeting, and then we work out the details afterwards. Article 19, as you heard earlier tonight, the school district feasibility study. We updated the figure from 1.2 million to 2 million based on last night's meeting.
But the town's not gonna have to raise this money, right?
No, the district,
We're just authorizing them to borrow.
we're authorizing to borrow, that's right.
Wait a minute, we're not footing the bill, but the district is? Well, it's a circular thing, you know, it comes right back at you.
It just says that the town will raise and appropriate $2 million.
Yeah, well, that's gonna be cleaned up. We get the article from the district because it needs to appear identically on all 3 warrants.
Yeah.
And I didn't wanna muddy the waters earlier, so I don't know, I guess I'll muddy them now, but, everything I remember about borrowing for a regional school district tells me that it needs to be a unanimous vote by the district. So all 3 towns, I believe, will have to approve it. Yes, it is a 2/3 majority because it's authorizing borrowing, but I believe and the reason I say that is I go back to the Minuteman Building Committee, building vote, where it failed in 1 town, and then we had to go out and Minuteman authorized it to pay for the district-wide
Right.
vote.
Yep, I remember that.
The nuclear option, as we called it.
Yep.
Article 20, we have the placeholder for the community aggregation. committee, subcommittee. We just late today did receive wording for an article, so we will have that. The committee's doing its work moving forward. And Article 21, the Mosquito Response Committee, again, we'll be getting an article from them anytime now, and we'll have that for the next meeting as well.
Okay.
And then the Article 22, the last one, so not quite as many articles as we've had some years, but some of the ones in here may be entertaining, you never know.
Entertaining.
So, but that, I'm sorry,
Just one quick note,
okay,
just on Article 11, there's a note in yellow that refers to an amount in red, and through the many variations of this, the number became black, so it's the 19,000 that should be red,
okay.
and we're just waiting on that final number.
And that number is a placeholder, actually.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so that number will change. It's for our tracking purposes, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we have confirmed for the meeting for March 12th that both town council and the town moderator will be here.
Great, okay. We've done that. We need to approve the bills and payroll warrants, W20-16 and W20-16A.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And you have them upstairs for me to sign?
Actually, I'm ready.
Okay. And do we have any minutes?
We do.
You want to make an announcement, Jenny, on the minutes?
I'm very excited to say that we are, after, if you sign all of these, we will be current with our minutes.
Yay.
Compliant and current.
Like,
Compliant and current,
Up
then.
to, other than the ones I'm writing right now.
And,
Right?
our new process is paying off.
What I didn't do is make a list for you, but these are all done. All the ones with yellow are the ones that were.
all right, so,
I should also mention one other thing. In the clip has a couple red lines, because both you and Stan had some comments. So I printed both of your red lines.
all right, so we believe there's unanimity on these.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so before we get to the one that's contentious, I will move that we approve the minutes of December 12, 2019, regular session, December 12, 2019, executive session, January 9, 2020, executive session, January 9, 2020, regular session, and January 23, 2020, executive session.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And I guess there are copies of these to hand out.
Nope, it's,
It's just one,
yes.
so we're gonna fight over it.
Yeah, that would have been smart, wouldn't it? So what I did was, so you know your edits, you could pass those on, these are Stan's edits.
They can just accept them without, you know?
And they're very small, so they're in red.
They're in red.
Mm-hmm. So turn the page.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And the ones in red. Oh, we have only the one copy, right?
Yeah, sorry. That
Are
was
these meetings as exciting as the ones you used to have then?
We started at 7. We were known to go till 12 to 1 in the morning. And it was every week, from 96 to 99. And I was the last chairman to not have any town coordinator or administrator. It was absolutely brutal.
Those are
So
fine.
you guys have it easy.
Where stands? Stands edits.
yes,
Oh, I'm sorry, this is it. That's the one, that's the one.
sorry, next time you bring multiple
I'll
copies.
show Stan your edits. I'm
They're
fine with
fine.
them.
whose edits are these?
Mine.
Bob's. I'm fine with Bob's for this, it's fine. I just added a word. Bob added 9 paragraphs.
That one's fine.
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
And what's that one?
That's
And
your, those are yours, I think.
It's a clean copy
I've
of
got
that.
the clean copy.
Ken, how many of your boards are so efficient and collegial as this one?
No comment.
Alright, so everybody fine with my edits?
Don has trimmed as well.
Okay.
So I move that
Definitely a
the
good group.
board approve the minutes of January 23, 2020 regular session.
So moved, for a second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Here's your pen.
Oh, thank you.
So Jenny, does that mean we're 100% officially now?
Except for the ones I'm typing, yes. Still losing battle. though.
When will those be?
Okay.
If you keep Ed's schedule, you could probably finish it by the day.
Absolutely.
Were you serving with them?
Pardon?
Who were you serving with them?
Toward the end, Jim Anker and Ken Troop. Prior to that, it had been Nancy Reed. I think that was it. And Lois Alex, I think we had Lois Alex for the first year in '96, if I'm not mistaken, and Linda Day did good service for many years after that.
Alrighty.
It was an interesting experience.
Alright, so next up, we're gonna move into executive session. We're actually gonna move into 2 executive sessions. We're not gonna come out in between into open session. First executive session is in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, Purpose 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, 5 Spectacle Road, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board, and the chair so does declare. And Purpose 7, to comply with the act or to comply with or act under the authority of the Public Records Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 66, and the holdings in Suffolk Construction Company, Inc. versus Division of Capital Asset Management to review a confidential attorney-client communication. And immediately following, we will go into another executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation of the position of the Board of Selectmen, and the chair so declares. The board will not reconvene into open session.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Roll call, Kansky,
Aye.
Aye.
Wysocki.
Aye.
It's been great.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.